Welcome to episode 188, which is a Girl Take the Lead soundbite, which is a shorter episode that may be a bit more about a topic we've covered or quick inspiration, like our episode today. And I'm your host, Yokani. We've been covering stories about fearless leadership for August, and this is our final part of that series. I know you probably all followed the Olympics in Paris this year and heard a lot about the women who stood out with amazing stories like Katie and Simone and Sha'Carri. But I'm thinking there's some other stories you may not have heard about. And that's my hope for today. I hope you hear something you didn't know and feel inspired by these fearless women. And as always, all my sources are in the show notes. Enjoy the listen, and here you go. Let's start with the fact that Paris Summer Games had gender parity, with half of the over 10,000 athletes participating were women. The growth in women participating in the Olympics has been a slow and steady build. In 1964, women accounted for only 13% of athletes. The participation grew to 23% in 1984, 44% in 2012, and 48% in 2020. By comparison, in 1900, when Paris first hosted the Games, there were only 22 female athletes, which is about 2.2%. And they participated in just two sports, tennis and golf. In Paris, there were 329 medal events. 152 of them were for women and 20 mixed gender. In addition, 28 of the 32 sports were fully gender balanced. Governing body IOC asked that for the opening ceremonies, each nation have at least one female and one male athlete as the flag bearer. The Olympics were also improving the coverage of female events. The IOC scheduled equal prime time coverage of men and women events. Moreover, in a first, the final Olympic event was the women's marathon instead of the traditional men's marathon. In a written statement, an IOC member noted, quote, "The Olympic Games are a rare occasion when female athletes can make the headlines as much as their male counterparts. We know that there are prime global broadcasting times at each edition of the Olympic Games. We have adjusted the schedule accordingly to ensure that a gender-balanced number of medal events and total competition hours take place during those time slots." There were over 12 million viewers watching women's gymnastics. And to give you some reference, that's more viewers than every game of the 2024 NBA Finals, every game of the 2023 MLB World Series, or the Stanley Cup Finals. Interestingly, though, the very first edition of the Olympic Games was held in Athens, in Greece, back in 1896. And the tradition of giving away medals to the top competitors only began in 1904 in St. Louis, Missouri, in the US. And for the first two editions in 1986 and 1900, participation in these games was literally a prize in itself. And you can ask any athlete, even now, and they will tell you that even though the top performers walk away with the medals in each discipline, it's the chance to become an Olympian that is the most cherished dream. A medal, of course, is just the cherry on the cake. The Olympic Games, both summer and winter, always throw up numerous inspirational stories, and the ongoing Paris Games were no different. Here are some great stories of athletes fueled by the passion of competing on the biggest sporting stage of them all, whose stories and achievements have become global talking points. The first is Yaylagul Ramazanova, an Azerbaijan archer. This 34-year-old, who has been termed a badass by some social media users, went to the Paris Olympics 6.5 months pregnant. Yaylagul, ranked 185th in the world, pulled off a huge upset at the games when she humbled a higher ranked Chinese archer in the first elimination round. The match turned out to be an absolute edge of the seat thriller, with both archers giving it their all as they tied each other 5-5, sending the match into a single arrow shoot off. And this is where, pregnant at all, she kept her nerve. She shot a 10 to notch up a memorable victory. Ramazanova was quoted as saying, quote, "I felt my baby kick before I shot this last arrow, and then I shot a 10. Though she was eliminated in the next round, she left an indelible impression on the 2024 games. She was also quoted to have said, quote, "During training for the Olympics, I didn't feel uncomfortable with my pregnancy. Instead, I felt that I was not fighting alone, but fighting together with my baby." Yaylagul was not the only pregnant woman competing. There was Nada Hafez, a 26-year-old Egyptian fencer who was 7 months pregnant. I don't know about you, but fencing looks really grueling. It requires incredible agility, precision, and stamina, all while wearing a full bodysuit and fencing mask. No wonder no one caught on to the fact that she was pregnant. And she beat USA's Elizabeth Tartakovsky, a former NC2A champion, 15-3 in the first round. It was after this match that Hafez took to social media to announce to the world 7 months pregnant Olympian. What appears to you as 2 players on the podium, they were actually 3. It was me, my competitor, and my yet to come to our world little baby. My baby and I had our fair share of challenges, be it both physical and emotional. The roller coaster of pregnancy is tough on its own, but having to fight to keep the balance of life and sports was nothing short of strenuous, however worth it. I'm writing this post to say that pride fills my being for securing my place in the round of 16. This specific Olympics was different. 3 times Olympian, but this time carrying a little Olympian one. Hafez eventually lost to South Korea. Just imagine the grit and determination it takes to compete at the highest level while being 7 months pregnant. Let's hear it for the hormones that make us invincible or feel that we're invincible, but then we hit the 9th month. Oh, I know for me, it was like hitting a brick wall and I couldn't move. Next, there's the 58-year-old table tennis grandma, Zhiying Zeng, the Chilean table tennis player of Chinese origin. Since the 1970s, Zhiying has had a passion that saw her make it to the Paris Olympics at the ripe old age of 58. She was born in China in 1966. Her mother was a table tennis coach, and she picked up the paddle really young and turned professional at the age of 12. Can you imagine how difficult it must have been to be a table tennis player in China, hands down, the most successful table tennis nation ever? Consider this. From the time table tennis was introduced as an Olympic sport in the 1988 edition in Seoul, China has won a mind-boggling 60 table tennis medals, including 32 gold, 20 silver, and 8 bronze medals. In the 9 editions of the Olympics from 1988 to 2020, China has been the best performing nation throughout. So when Zhang was called up to the Chinese table tennis team at the age of 16, it was no mean feat. But then came the downturn. According to a CNN report, the two-color rule in 1986, 2 years before the 1988 Olympics Games, meant that paddlers had to use paddles that had 2 different colors on the 2 sides of the paddle. And this saw Zhang's game affected because opponents could now read her game better, and she could no longer confuse them by turning the paddle continuously in her hand. She had to eventually leave the Chinese team. In 1989, she received an invitation to coach school kids in Chile. Zhang packed her bags and left. She stayed in Chile and made only sporadic comebacks to competitive table tennis. Once in 2003, and then again during the COVID pandemic, when she began winning regional tournaments, playing mostly against men. The big crowning glory came in 2023 when she was picked to be part of the Chilean women's team for the Pan American Games in Santiago. She bagged the bronze in the team event along with Daniela Ortega and Paulina Vega. CNN reported that Chileans gave her the nickname Tia Tanya. According to AP report, one young fan was quoted as saying that he had gone to the competition just to watch the table tennis grandma in action. Zhang is not actually a grandmother, but she very quickly became an iconic figure in Chile. Cut to Paris 2024, and Zhang's lifelong dream of becoming an Olympian finally came true. Her 92-year-old father stayed up till 5 a.m. in China to watch his daughter realize her dream. An emotional Zhang told CNN, quote, "My dad was able to see his daughter qualify for the Olympics. He used to take me to training and to matches when I was a girl. And now at 57, I made it. I made it." Though she lost in the preliminary rounds in Paris to Lebanon, Zhang is one athlete that was headlined, and she was headlined for the right reasons, for showing the world that being an Olympian is what drives all athletes, regardless of eventual glory, and that none of us must ever forget just how big an achievement or how cherished a dream Olympic participation in itself truly is. And there's Penny Healy, archery, Great Britain. She is the youngest of the world-class program squad at 19. She started archery when she was 9 after watching the Disney movie Brave. And she used to shoot arrows from the back of a horse. She said this, quote, "When I was about 8 or 9, I was doing horse riding and thought it would be cool to do archery on the back of a horse. Then I had to stop horse riding because it was too expensive. So I got into archery instead. It was love at first sight. With 2 gold medals at the 2023 European Games in Poland, Healy's story and age are inspiring enough, but it doesn't end there. She says archery helped her through the anxiety she suffered during the COVID lockdown. She was seeded at 52 and was eliminated from competition early on in Paris. But this is what resilience looks like. She said this, quote, "In the next few years, I think I'm definitely going to work on a lot of mental stuff, which was then going along with the technical stuff I'm working on. I've already said to the psychologist, I'm not going to let the next games be like these games. I'm going to do everything I can," she added. And there's Olympian and 11-time medalist, proud mother of 2, Allyson Felix, who made the first ever Olympic Village baby nursery happen for athlete parents through a partnership with Pampers. Felix said this, quote, "It's here so that mothers and families feel supported. Having some normalcy is great. Just to have an actual space dedicated for this. It's meant to feel like home." Allyson won the bronze medal in the women's 400 meter. The nursery in Paris is far from Felix's first foray into activism. She created a child care fund in 2021 to support mom athletes and also recently received a $20 million grant from the Melinda French Gates Foundation to support Black maternal health. She maintains that her mission is to make sure initiatives such as her fund and the Olympic nursery become societal staples. She said, quote, "This is a shift in culture. It's saying that motherhood isn't the end. If you choose to be a mother in the midst of your career, you can still go and have incredible performances." Before I end our episode today, I'd like to remind you about our card and gift shop, which has been themed to go along with our podcast episodes. Be sure to check out girltaketheleadpod.com/shop because there's a card there I think would go very well with this episode and the inspiration from it. It reads, "Cheers. You made it look so easy." Maybe you know someone who inspires you like these Olympic athletes. In closing, I'd like to read you a post that, quote, Shower Arguments with Emily Solberg made on August 3rd. Emily, by the way, has 194,000 followers on Facebook. And this is what she said. "When it comes to the female athletes competing right now in the 2024 Olympic Games, want to know what I care less about? What the hair looks like, what their BMI is, what they wear when they compete, if they have makeup on, how long their nails are, how masculine or feminine they appear to be. These are the most boring, uninteresting parts about all of them. Talk to me instead about how the biker who won gold in BMX did so wearing her brother's number on her jersey, and how she broke down in tears afterward because he was there, cheering her on despite suffering a horrible crash in 2020 that left him in a coma for 2 months, and despite her own wipeout at the Tokyo Games that crushed her spirit. Talk to me instead about how the most decorated female swimmer in Olympic history became only the second swimmer ever to win the same race in 4 straight Olympic Games. She did it the first time at 15 years old. No big deal. Talk to me instead about how the gymnast who struggled with her mental health defied all the couch potato internet haters, focused all her energy on getting better, and fought her way to an epic comeback to become the most decorated American Olympic gymnast. Talk to me instead about how the rugby player who preaches body, positivity, and acceptance helped the women's sevens team make history by earning its first ever medal and the first medal for U.S. rugby, period, since 1924. Talk to me instead about how the rower who won gold secretly wrote about her dreams in her diary at the age of 14, only to have her note handed back to her 7 years later by her dying father, as a reminder that even when she didn't believe in herself, he always did. Talk to me instead about how the judo champion, who has been a trailblazer for women's rights in sports, worked tirelessly to ensure that breastfeeding athletes received hotel rooms during the games, brought her daughter with her to training, and held her aloft after winning the bronze. Talk to me instead about how a 55-year-old shooter is the first female athlete to compete in 10 Olympic Games, setting a record for longevity in her sport. Talk to me instead about how this is the first Olympics in history where we have true gender parity. 5,250 male athletes competing and 5,250 female athletes competing. And I really couldn't care less about what they look like, how much they weigh, if they choose to wear leggings instead of bikini bottoms, what their hair looks like, how long their nails are, how old they are, or if they don't fit the mold of what society says they should. Thank you for listening today. And here's what that card looked like. I'm not sure that I showed it. I know some of you were watching this one. So anyway, this is what that card looks like. We sure hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcast, tell a friend about us, or join our public Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead. We also have a YouTube channel where your subscription would be appreciated. Once you're on YouTube, search at Girl Take the Lead. And we're on YouTube Music, where you can see the video of this episode. Here are 3 takeaways from today. 1, the 2024 Olympics truly demonstrated gender parity. 2, the original spirit of the Olympics was alive and well as athletes showed their passion and care for each other in Paris. 3, being a mother doesn't need to mean career death as an athlete. Our theme for September will be abundance, both from a spiritual and functional perspective. We'll have all kinds of episodes with special guests and books to help us explore this topic. Our very next episode will cover the book Abundance, The Inner Path to Wealth by Deepak Chopra, MD. So please join us again and talk to you soon. Bye.